Today I wanted to make a video showing the complete replacement of an ignition switch on a 2013 Ford Explorer XLT model. This is my wife's vehicle, and it was having an issue where, strangely, if the vehicle was sitting parked off and it was a hot sunny day and the cabin got too hot, the vehicle would not turn over for some strange reason. And it baffled the Ford dealership, it baffled local mechanics. So I dug into some forums and found a nugget of help where someone had mentioned having this problem and replaced their ignition switch. So I am giving that a try today. So this is the ignition switch itself. It has an electrical connector here, and then it also has let me get the lighting right here, and it's got two clips here, which is how it is going to be plugged in, and it will actually be situated just like this. If we're looking at the car here, it's going to be sitting just like this. I had some trouble finding the ignition switch, and this may be a very noob mechanic error, but typically when you see ignition switches, they're somewhere housed on the steering column, which is why I've got the shrouds off, and you can see I've got everything exposed here on the steering column itself. However, the ignition on the 2013 Ford Explorer is here to the right. So naturally I was quite baffled when removing the shrouds and finding nothing looking like this. So I have finally discovered where it is, and it seems like it's going to be a pretty simple repair. Just want to give you the first steps. So down here, this is going to really, I've been able to reach back here. Let me see if I can get an angle up there. Right there is our ignition switch. So it's right back here. This is actually the electrical connector. I've already disconnected from the current switch. It's right back here. This is right behind the ignition lock cylinder on the right side up here. So in order to access this, first I had to take off this panel, which basically it usually sits just like this. In order to take that off, it's mostly just these snap-in caps, but there are two screws, two bolts that go in underneath here, 1 and 2. You're gonna have to you're gonna need a 7mm socket for that. And then once you get that plastic piece off, this metal plate is sitting here as a cover, and then this is held in by 4 10mm bolts, which you'll just have to unscrew. There's 1, 2, and then 3 and 4 is this big circle right here. And so once you get those off, you'll have access. Pull the ignition lock cylinder housing back through the back here. As I was trying to get these clips off, let me see if I can get up here. Sorry about that view. So as I was trying to get these side clips to pull the actual switch out, I ended up pulling the whole lock cylinder through. Hopefully I can just snap it back in. We'll see in a second. Okay, I did get it to work. This is the old ignition switch. Sorry, I didn't actually film it changing it out. It was a little bit difficult. I'm a rookie at this. So all I did was, the ignition lock cylinder basically pushed back, and so what I did was I just pushed these two clips in on either side and pulled pretty fiercely, I'll say. I'd already had the electrical connector unplugged, and so since the ignition lock cylinder was already pulled back, it was a little bit easier. So for the new switch, there was a spring in the back of the ignition lock cylinder. I just made sure that stayed in there in basically the same position. Pushed the new switch like so. Quick pause just to notate that I actually have this upside down here. So it's the correct facing direction, but it's upside down. Onto the back of the ignition lock cylinder, these clips snapped into place, and then I plugged the electrical connector in, and that is now in place up there. You can't really see it, but it is in place. I was able to get the ignition lock cylinder back into place and got the cover back on, and I tried to start the vehicle, and it did start successfully. So all that's left now is to put the car back together. I'm gonna go park it in the sun, and hopefully this fixes the issue. To put the steering column shrouds back on, I'm just gonna lean that one back here, and then here's the bottom. So the bottom is gonna go like so, and I'll get it, and these will go together basically, and then like I said, you have 3 7mm bolts here, here, and there. I don't actually think you need to take this off in order to make the replacement. Well, I take that back. It's kind of in the way. You're probably going to want to take this off. It just makes things easier. Steering column shrouds back together. I found it easier to simply reattach the bottom and put the 3 bolts in there and secure them with the 7mm socket, and then this top piece. So I have that bottom piece already in place. So I let the top piece fold down and then snap that into place. That seemed to work pretty well. Got everything back together smoothly. Then I've got this metal plate back together, or reassembled the metal cover plate here. Again, 10mm bolts. So 1, 2, 3, and then 4 up here. Slide this little metal piece in and then secure all of those. Hand tighten. One tiny little piece I forgot. These little, I don't know if they're just kind of to secure the plate a little bit more and position it better to screw the bolts in, but definitely have these behind the plate, so when I tried to put this plastic cover back on, it wasn't quite flush, and so I got a little concerned. So took the bolts off. Yeah, don't forget to make sure these are in the aligned holes, and that will help your bolts in go a little bit easier. I thought something didn't feel quite right. I can probably film the panel at least. So we've got everywhere you see these green tabs, they're gonna go into these holes here, and that's how we will, oh, I hope I did this right. All right, let's see. So we will snap that into place, like so. If this thing will, yeah, see, I can't do this one-handed. There you have it. That is the complete replacement of an ignition switch on a 2013 Ford Explorer XLT model. Hope this video has been helpful.